for bachata.
Let's do it.
I saw you dancing the other day. That's probably why I did that.
You saw me? That's that's my music. Those are my people. I can't play it because I have headphones.
Oh, I was gonna say, what happened? Where are the headphones?
They're right here.
All right, let me go on here. Ignore the volume. All right, there we are. All right. Hello, Facebook and YouTube and everywhere. Instagram.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome everyone to Thrive Talk Live with why I can hear myself.
You hear yourself?
Do you?
Okay.
Oh, that's why. That's why that is. Yes, I can hear myself. Hi, Mimi. How are you? Welcome to Thrive Talk Live.
Do you still hear yourself?
I do hear myself through here because I have you on my earbud.
Oh no.
Hey guys.
Hi,
We've been having a little bit of technical difficulties and we're just rolling with it and having fun with it. So just roll with us and have fun with us. That's all.
Yes.
Why is it to hear you double?
Do you hear me double too?
Wait a second. Hey guys, can you tell us if you hear us double as well? Mimi, do you hear us double? What did she say?
I can't see anything.
Oh, okay, let me lower this. Hey, Brandy. Brandy, do you hear us double? Like, do you hear two voices? We could just keep going. Anyway, we are on Thrive Talk Live. I'm September, and here we are. It says Sarai has an echo. Yeah, I hear an echo.
They do.
I wonder
why. And we tried the headphones, so we practiced this beforehand to try to make sure that this
actually you don't have the headphones on.
Yeah, on the laptop.
Oh, you know what? It's me. I have this on. I think so. I lowered my volume right now. All right, what about now? Is it better now?
Bye, guys.
Is it better now? I think it's better now. Yes, we can hear it. Funny voices. Yes, you both. Yes, both of you. So they're hearing the echo. So okay, I know what it is. We have to lower the volume on the phone for Instagram. But would they be able to hear us if we lower the volume?
So I have it lowered. But it doesn't let me lower it all the way. So here on Instagram.
Hey guys, you're watching bloopers. We've been
having bloopers. I have an idea. I have an idea though. I have a great idea. Let's see if this problem gets solved.
I already know what ideas.
Do you? Okay, what about now?
While we get it together, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarai Moore. I am a licensed mental health counselor and trauma therapist in the state of Florida. I am the founder of Trinity Community Mental Health Center and Circle of Champions Worldwide. And my passion is to help people overcome adversities, childhood trauma, generational trauma, and not just help you overcome, but the reason why I do this Thrive Talk show is to bring you weekly stories of people who have overcome their own adversity and show you through their story and give you hope that you could do anything you'd like as please, as you anything you like as please. You heard what I said? You can be the creator of your life and pretty much do anything that you like. Your past doesn't equal your future. Not even your current present situation equals your future. The only thing that equals your future is the vision that you have for yourself and your ability to believe in that and just step into it and start creating it. So everyone that I bring to you every Thursday, every weekend and week out are people who have done it for themselves. So tonight I have Ashley because she hasn't been with me for a few months. I would say months, maybe 8 or 9 months. It feels like 8 or 9 months, right? So just enough time for Ashley to birth something new.
Yes, definitely.
For those of you that don't know Ashley, I met Ashley last year. I met her last year doing. I'm not talking right tonight, people.
You're doing great. You are doing great.
I met her last week. I met her last year, during two events that I did last year. She was actually she was on our first event, and then I did like a voting thing where people voted her to come back to my second event, and she's just amazing. She has like not only does she have this amazing smile, she's super bubbly, she's super warm, she's super sweet. Even though she could karate chop you, and she has that other spirit in her, but she had so much greatness
Definitely.
about her. She's super young that I forget her age because I always think like I don't like we're always at the same level. Either that means I'm like very immature or it means that you're an
No,
old soul. Or maybe it's both. Maybe it's both and we're meeting
a
like
little
at the
bit of
middle
both.
all the time. So
Oh
tonight
my gosh.
she's gonna be telling her story, and we're gonna get into she might like let us know about, maybe give us like little sneak peek into what her projects are, because she's been MIA for a little bit, but all for good reason. She's been baking something up
Yes.
there for herself. So
Oh
let's see
yes.
what that is. But I know I introduced you. She's a mind, body, soul coach, but I'm gonna let her do a way better job of introducing herself because I just introduced you from my heart, but you can introduce
Oh.
yourself from everywhere else. Go ahead.
Well, that's the best way, first of all, to be introduced. Thank you for having me. It's always so much fun when we connect. I love being able to watch your lives. I love being able to also be a part of them. So thank you so much for having me. I am Ashley Pena, like she said. I am a mind, body, soul life coach. I model. I mean, I do a lot of different things, but at the core of what I do is just really helping people live authentically and flourish in every aspect of their lives, regardless of what they've been through. I coach people, and through everything that I do, through the modeling that I do, through everything that I do, my goal is to help people transform through what they go through and transcend it, meaning help you grow through what you go through, because we all go through things and have gone through things, and also help you rise above it. Because for me personally, that's what my journey has been like. I have grown through so many obstacles, through my own sets of adversity, and being able to rise above them and then help other people do the same has really brought everything that I've been through meaning. So that's really what I do in a nutshell. I just love helping people. I love connecting with people. And in any way that I get to do that is like a fun experience for me. So I do a lot, but in everything that I do, that is my main goal.
Awesome, awesome, awesome,
Yes.
awesome. And so, Ashley, for the people that don't know you, there's a lot of people here who do know you, and people who
Mhm.
don't know you. So for the people that don't know you, or people who need refreshers,
Yes.
what is the thing? What is the thing that caused you? I mean, there's such a big story for you. Like you left to
Yes.
California and all this stuff. But let's see. Like, why don't we get into like what gave you like where did this passion to help others and do all this? Where did that come from?
Oh, I love this question so much. I obviously get complimented often by my mindset and the way that I live, and in how like positive I am and how cheery I am all the time. And I get complimented on what I do and all the things that I've been able to do and all of these crazy adventures that I've embarked on. But as great as all of that is, and as grateful as I am for all of it, it obviously comes from a lot of struggle, right? It comes from a background of me feeling totally lost and not knowing what my purpose was. Before I knew that I wanted to help people, I really didn't know what I was made here to do. I felt very hopeless. I didn't really feel like I had a purpose here on earth because of what I had experienced as a child. Like I felt abandoned. I felt like I was abandoned by one parent and then totally neglected by another because of the fact that she was experiencing a lot of her own mental issues. And so when I was younger, I started adopting a lot of healthy habits. I struggled with substance abuse at a very young age. And for me, my goal was not even to live. Like I didn't think when I was younger, which is why I'm so mature for my age, like I always get, right? When I was younger, I felt like I had to grow up really quickly. And I hated that. I hated that I had to live. I couldn't live as a child. I was forced kind of into this like adulthood. And I, with that, wanted to do my own thing and live freely and wildly. And that put me in very, very unhealthy situations and really, really dangerous situations as well. And so I struggled with an eating disorder. Like everything that I had gone through being so young led to such a lifestyle and manifested in mental illness as well for me. And so on top of what I had experienced, I had manifested so many other issues, one being an eating disorder. So I was extremely insecure about myself and my body and my abilities. So that was really defeating at one point in my life. But then I experienced at a very young age, I was about 15, I had experienced 2 back-to-back like car accidents that were really, really traumatic. For me, that happened because of substance abuse and us being really reckless and me ultimately not really caring about my life at all. And in the last car accident that I had gotten into, I really realized the impact that I have not only in my life, because I didn't really care too much about it, to be completely honest, at that point in my life, but the impact that I had in the lives of others. Like it really, the universe really allowed me to see at that moment that I could have really damaged somebody else's life. And that was not something that I was okay with. Like I could not live with that. And it really shifted my entire life. Like I was 15 and partying and being reckless and went from that lifestyle to like, I'm responsible. And what I went through is no longer an excuse, or what I'm going through even is no longer an excuse for me to keep living this way. I have to be better so that I don't hurt others, so that I don't negatively impact other people's lives. And I want to make it a point to do positive things for people, right? So I wasn't yet at a place where I was like, I'm worthy or I love myself. But I shifted from like, I don't care about my life to I care about the lives of others. And I really want to make other people feel better. And I want to make sure that I'm not negatively impacting the life experience of others. Because I know that with those 2 situations that I was in, I could have definitely impacted people's lives in a very negative way. And the universe saved me from it.
And so that accident that you're saying you had, was that at 15?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know it was that.
Yeah,
it was
that
so young.
I actually had 2. So one of them was for the same reason, drunk driving, reckless behavior, and nothing happened. We were safe. And it was like a miracle that we were safe, that we were fine. And I was like, okay, I'll just be more careful next time. But I was still reckless and still very much, I just didn't care. I didn't care about my life. I didn't feel like anyone else did, even if it wasn't totally true. But that's how I felt at the time. And the second time I had like a huge epiphany to where I was like, I'm being saved for something, right? Like maybe I don't understand why I'm being saved for me, but I do understand that maybe I'm being saved for a greater purpose or a greater calling, even if I can't see that yet. And even though I was so young, that's what it was for me. Like that experience was like, I cut off from everyone, like from the world. Being 15, I stopped living, I stopped going out, I stopped hanging out with the people that I was hanging out with. I made a huge life change at such a young age that really shifted my mindset in a huge way. And although I wasn't at a space where I was like really loving towards myself, I knew that I was saved for something greater. Like to me, it didn't make any other sense for me to be saved by such a traumatic experience. So that's where life really.
I'm so happy that you're sharing your story too, because everyone today I was talking about like everyone's adversity or trauma or pain or whatever word you want to use is so different. It's like the color, like it could be anything in the rainbow, right? And then everyone wants to compare, like, well, you went through that, but I went through this. The thing is that our pain is our pain. We cannot experience the other person's pain, but your pain is actually so common. It is so common to have the pain of abandonment. And many times, you know, there's a lot attached to that, but at the core, so there's mental health issues, there's conflict between our parents. Let's say like that. So your parents at some point had a conflict, your dad wasn't there anymore, you experienced that as abandonment. Your mom was probably very depressed because of everything that happened. You experienced that as abandonment. So it isn't so much about the narrative, about like the story of what happened. It's like the end impact that you had, which was abandonment. And abandonment is such a huge source of trauma for so many people. And I don't think it gets the attention that it really deserves. because abandonment really means exactly what you said, neglect. And as a
Yes.
child, emotional neglect hurts way more than getting a whooping here and there. Like you could get a whooping here and there, which I'm not minimizing the impact of that, but
Of course.
the impact of being emotionally abandoned long term to the point where you're acting out, because a lot of what you were doing is just basically what we call acting out. You were acting out as
Yeah.
a 15-year-old, drinking, doing all this
Yes.
stuff, maybe trying to find love in the wrong places or whatever it is.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
so many people, I'm sure so many people watching this could identify with that experience of being abandoned, the abandonment
For
feeling.
sure.
Definitely, I know what that feels like. So
Yeah.
definitely that, like, if I could pinpoint, with like, you don't have to tell the story to say I
Of
know
course.
what my greatest source of
Yeah.
pain is. Would you say
For
that
sure.
out of everything that has happened to you, would you say your biggest childhood trauma was the experience of feeling emotionally abandoned, which pretty much means feeling like you're alone?
Yes. Well, I love that question because definitely, obviously, it's like a combination of everything that you go through, right? Like I feel like, especially when you experience abandonment, then everything else also adds to that. So for sure, my main, like what I pointed my anger to and my frustration was definitely like I'm being abandoned, but then at the same time now I'm having to like pick up all of these things and responsibilities that as a
Right.
child, like how am I supposed to do this? Like how I
Mhm.
don't have the tools, nobody's teaching me how to do this. Like how do I take on these responsibilities and tasks while also pretending to be a kid, which I don't feel like I am anymore, right? That is definitely what impacted me the most. And then that with everything else that was occurring with death in the family and the other things that I was experiencing as my own person was adding
Mhm.
to that. And just like you said, it's the culmination of everything that we experience and understanding that what we experience is valid. And sometimes when we're kids and when we are experiencing things, or even adults, we're experiencing things and they're not being heard or they're not being tended to or even like talked about, you're like suppressing that and dealing with it in your own way that adds to even more problems and manifests in even more ways that are detrimental to your overall well-being as well.
Yes, exactly. And I would say, like, now, I've never, as much as we talk and know each other, and I knew the
Mhm.
story, I didn't know the impact. Like
Yes,
we
definitely.
superficially, very quickly have talked about stuff, and now I'm getting like a
Hmm.
deeper sense of like what you've gone through.
Yeah.
And now it really explains why you're so much about like self-love and
Hmm.
taking care of yourself and having really good boundaries and all of that. Like, if you
Yes.
guys don't know Ashley is like a major coach for this of boundaries that are a big thing for you, big thing.
Yes,
uh,
huge. Yes.
Boundaries and self-love. It's like basically, if I had to think of you, those are the two ways, and then from there it trickles down into a whole bunch of other things. um
Yes.
but you're also extremely resourceful, because part of your
Mhm.
story is that part of your resourcefulness and part of you seeking, to live and seeking to have a better life made you make a major decision, which is fleeing from the toxicity of what was happening here in Miami for you. And at a very
Definitely.
young age, you got in a car and drove across the country. So maybe you could tell a little bit, you could say a little, and I did the same thing.
Yeah,
I went to
I
California too.
know.
That's funny. But it's so
That's
funny.
so amazing. I know. That's what's so cool about like connecting with you because we have so much in common. And like you always say, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's story is different in different ways, but we can all resonate with each other's pain and each other's journeys and stories and what we had to do to overcome that pain. And so for
Yeah.
me, after I experienced like my that epiphany or that moment of like, okay, I need to do better, I was still having to take on so much responsibility and at the same time like find myself and know myself, and I really didn't know how to do that within the environment that I was in. It was really important, which on top of that then I started getting into toxic relationships with people that, because I didn't love myself and I didn't really know how to love myself at that point. So I knew that if I wanted to make true changes and really find myself, find my purpose, and and align with that, I needed to step out of my comfort zone in a way that I had never done before. I was still struggling with an eating disorder at this point too, which was taking up so much space in every aspect of my life. And so I was like, I need something. And I was waiting for that. I was waiting for signs of like, where should I go and what should I do? And then I went on a trip to California and I was like, I have to go. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I need to be there and I need to do this. And I need to do this by myself. And I packed my car and I drove across the United States, and it was an incredible experience. I mean, I don't really have words to even express how transformative it was. It was extremely scary for me. I had never done anything like that. I had never made myself a priority in that way. Like I was so, like, I had to always make sure that other people were fine and that, like, I was kind of put in the back burner, and this was the opportunity for me to say, like, no, like, I'm gonna go after what I want to do, even if I don't know what that is. I'm gonna go figure it out. I'm going to spend time with myself and only myself. And it was the first time that I really allowed myself the opportunity to, like, be free and not know what the path would hold. And I did, and it was extremely amazing. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for that.
I know. Was that the first time that you actually said yes to yourself and said, you know what? I can't take care of you, Mom. I can't take care of you anymore. And I can't listen to you guys. And I'm leaving because you guys are draining all my energy and soul. Was that the first time you were able to do that? Oh, wow. And you didn't know anybody
It
in
was
California?
so
Courageous.
it's really funny. It's really crazy, the story. So even before that, I was in a relationship and I was not happy. And I didn't love myself so much to the point where I knew I was unhappy. I knew I didn't want to be with this person, and I could not leave this person. Like, I didn't know how to say, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. Like, I would have rather just stayed in a relationship if that meant being with someone, because I just didn't want to be by myself. And then, excuse me, I remember literally saying, like, I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to be with this person. If it's not meant to be, just please remove it from my life, because I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to say yes to myself and also say enough is enough. Like, I didn't know how to do that. And the next day, we broke things off. And that's when, things just started totally transforming after that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so kind of that was the first time that I was like, okay, I know that I deserve more. I know that I am worthy of more. I know that I'm capable of more. Like, we got to keep this momentum going, because I felt so free, so liberated. And then right after that, that's when the whole California thing happened. And I met these two people on a cruise. Like, and
wow.
I hadn't known them. I only met them once on the cruise, and they were like, hey, if you want to come to California, you're more than welcome to stay with us. And I was like, I don't even know these people, but I feel like it's right and I'm going to do it. And so they let me. They were so nice. They let me stay with them. And that's really all it was. Like, it was so weird
so
and random and
interesting.
crazy.
I've never heard that piece of the story. Do you feel like that prayer changed everything for you?
Absolutely.
Like, that prayer answered, like, it literally got answered in 24 hours.
Yes.
It's incredible,
oh,
right?
my goodness. And, I was always a huge skeptic, right? Like, people see me now and I'm very spiritual. I'm very, like, positive and very, like, just trust in the universe. But this was not me at this point. Like, I was the opposite of that. I was, like, unable to even talk to God or my higher self or the universe and ask for that, because I didn't know that it was possible to say that, like, hey, help me out, because I don't have the strength. Like, I didn't have strength at that point to walk away from something that I knew was not meant for me. And so I asked, call it the universe or God, whatever you believe in. But I was like, I can't do this. I don't have the strength for it. So just make it a way, make it possible for me to just break free from this, because I know that there has to be more for me. And I know that this isn't it. And if it is, then I'll do it. But if it's not, if there's more for me, show me the way and I will follow. And it just started unfolding for me. And I'm so beyond blessed and grateful.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's also like really good that you're saying that for people that are listening, because honestly, like, abandonment, like, as a therapist, and like in therapy, a lot of people that come for therapy have abandonment issues, which people are like, oh, what's that? That's nothing. But that's so much. It
Yeah.
will keep you stuck in the wrong
Yes.
relationships because
Definitely.
your trauma is the feeling of loneliness, the feeling of
Yeah.
loneliness, the feeling of being alone. So you'll cling on to anything just to not experience the feeling. It doesn't even mean the person's
Absolutely.
special. It doesn't mean that,
Absolutely.
as long you just
No.
have a hot body next to you, and that like sort of covers
Yeah.
that wound. It's like a little band-aid so that you don't have to, you avoid the feeling
Yes.
of the pain of
Yes.
loneliness, which is just, it's an old pain. It's not even a current pain. It's just
No.
remembering that feeling is the trigger. So
Absolutely.
it's like anyone listening to this that has that experience will get that in 1 second, because like
Mhm.
weekly I talk to my clients, and weekly this is a struggle for so many people. And it's almost
Yes.
like, if I can't see it, like you didn't have physical damage like you would have in some other type of abuse or whatever, neglect.
Exactly.
Neglect
Yes.
is invisible. So being
Yes.
invisible, people don't take it serious, but it's extremely it has impact.
Yes.
Like the waves of impact will reach like the rest of your life. It's something
Absolutely.
even, and I would ask you right now, even
Yeah.
being that you've come so far, you've done so
Yes.
much, you're extremely courageous. I bet you if I
Mhm.
asked you right now, you probably still struggle with it. You just have better ways
Oh,
of
for sure.
coping with
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the beautiful part of it, which is why I feel so blessed to have been saved and guided to my purpose, because I realized how much of a common problem it was. I realized
it.
that,
It
like, this is a journey. Self-love even is a journey. It's not something that you practice for like a month or a year and then it's easy for you, especially when you've experienced trauma in your own ways, or many traumatic events, and one of them being abandonment. You are constantly having to work like that much harder to really make yourself in every aspect feel the love that you deserve to feel, and reminding yourself of the fact that you're the one that has to give that to yourself, and to make sure that you're not finding that in outside forces, through people or through friendships, relationships, through substances. Like, that's something that I had to continuously do and still practice. Like, I tell people all the time, like, I'm still implementing these things because of the fact that it is something that happened and it's very real. And something that you mentioned, which I think is also super important, and what added to it, is that it is overlooked many times, because you're like, oh, you're good, right? Like, you're smiling or whatever the case may be. Like, you're not necessarily showing, like you said, signs of physical abuse. So it is overlooked, and like, oh, everything is fine. Just like a mental illness, like an eating disorder. I lived my whole life with almost nobody knowing that I had an eating disorder. And I was really, really sick, like really unhealthy. Same with my mom. Like, she struggled with an eating disorder as well, on top of many other things that she was struggling with. And no one really ever reached out and said, like, are you okay? Like, how can we help? Or do you need help? Because of the fact that it wasn't something that they could understand, because it wasn't like written on us or shown physically. And that made it a lot harder, because
Exactly.
then that adds to your loneliness. You're like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm going through this, but I have to go through it alone because no one really understands, or no one really knows what it's like. And that ended
Hmm.
up serving me so greatly, because it put so many people in my path that felt the same way, that then I got the ability to help. And it was just, I all came full circle.
And you know what? Like as you were talking right now, because you started mentioning your mom. Like I always say, the trauma, or it's for you. It wasn't necessarily abuse. It's more just trauma, like the invisible trauma that we're talking about. And the story never really begins with us. We're just a continuation of the story. And the beautiful thing is that people like us, I'm not saying we're doing it perfectly, but we're definitely the generation that's trying to stop it. We're definitely the generation that's
Yes.
trying to stop the generational trauma. And abandonment is absolutely one of those invisible generational traumatic things that happen generation after generation after generation. And
Yes,
we're always in danger of doing the same to our children,
for
because
sure.
we, if you're raised in a way where you've been emotionally abandoned, you might have lived in a beautiful $1 million home and had all your physical needs met. But if you were emotionally ignored, abandoned, or your needs were met as far as like your emotional needs or your needs to be recognized and validated and all of that, then you don't even know how to do it. You don't know how to do it with others. You don't know how to connect. You don't know how to have a healthy bond with someone that you
Yes.
love. And you do know how to have you do know how to have a toxic bond, but not a healthy bond. And so we actually
Yeah.
have to relearn. We literally have to learn and read from books. How do you do it? Because we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
We have to actually like take a class and learn and be like, oh, this is how it's done. Like
Yeah.
I learned a lot of stuff like watching stuff on TV, like families on TV and stuff like that. I you
Yes.
know Raymond said abandonment was in my family for decades. It stopped with me, but the pain still
Yes.
comes at times. It's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Absolutely true.
And you know, if you're the type of if you're someone who has experienced some form of abandonment, emotional abandonment or neglect, um it doesn't mean that our parents were bad people.
No, not
It
at
more
all.
than likely, if you really, you don't even have to scratch too deep of the surface. You know, more than
Yes.
likely there was a lot of abandonment for them as well, or a lot of
Yeah. Definitely.
sometimes abandonment comes in the form of just not hearing you,
Yeah.
just not even tolerating your opinion, not asking you what do you like,
Yes.
what do you want, what do you think, even what do you think, and being quiet,
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
And that is a form of abandonment when the person
Sure.
feels like you can't even express how you feel, and that's extremely painful for a child. I've seen it happen, and it's just it breaks
Yeah.
my heart to see it in front of me. I'm just like, oh, and I have to like scratch myself. I'm just like, what do
Yeah.
you feel? Tell me, how do you feel? You
I
know,
know.
and
Absolutely.
it causes a lot of like cutting behaviors,
Yes.
self-harming behaviors. Like an eating disorder is a self-harming behavior.
Yeah.
It's almost a way of dealing with frustration.
For sure.
Self-harm, like cutting is a
Yeah.
form. It's a coping mechanism. Cutters don't
Hmm.
really want to die. They're not trying to die. They're trying to cope with
Yeah.
two things. They're trying to feel alive because that makes them feel alive.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is
Hmm.
they're trying to cope with the level of frustration that they have with
Definitely.
whatever's happening. And
Yeah.
abandonment is like a form of like torture. It could be torturous at
Absolutely.
times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think that it's so important to know that it's common, and even though you feel alone, you're not alone, right? Like I before I talked about it and shared my story, or even connected with other people with mirrored stories, like all the kids that I mentor struggled with so many similar things. All of the adults I worked with struggled with the same similar things. My lineage, right? When I really learned about my parents and where they come from, and their parents and their parents' parents, and all of the abandonment and trauma that they came from, it really allowed me to realize that I wasn't alone. Even though I was being impacted by this, I wasn't the only one being impacted by this. And I was being impacted by it because of the generational cycle of it, and that really showed me how common it was, and how much sometimes we don't have the time and the space to heal from it, or even be acknowledged for it, or even talk about it. And that's why, just like what Raymond said, he broke the cycle and still feels it, right? And it really is kind of our generation, our like purpose, I feel, essentially, to break those cycles and be aware
Mhm.
of what we experience, so that we can also be aware of what our ancestors have experienced, so that we can heal ourselves and also help them heal and pass
Mhm.
on the tools to cope with it. Because like you said, definitely, I was hurting myself and really destroying myself in any way I could, to be honest. Like I was like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to be all of these things that I'm supposed to be. I don't know how to like really talk about this, because no one's asking me to talk about it. I don't know how to accept what I'm going through and cope with it. So I'm going to cope with it in the way that I know best. And I cope with it through substance abuse, through things that led to even more traumatic events. So it's
Exactly.
really important to be able to acknowledge what you're doing. Even part of my healing, the eating disorder that I had, was knowing where it came from, and knowing that it wasn't just like, oh, you had an eating disorder because you're a problem, or because you're just different or weird. Like, you have an eating disorder because of how you were raised, what happened when you were younger. I mean, I was a kid being told, like, you can't eat this, you know, like you're gonna get fat if you eat this, and being fat equals bad, and if you're fat you're gonna be abandoned, like, you know, things that you believe if you hear it over and over and over again. And so also, if you see it in your household and it's normal for you to see like certain behaviors and patterns, you start adopting them until you say like, hold on, like this is happening because of this, but it doesn't have to happen. Like I can heal, I can tend to myself, and I can love on myself and nourish myself in a way that aligns with self-love, and I can do
Mhm.
better for not only myself but the same people that did this to me, and also the people that I create, or the people that I cross paths with from this point on, which are my clients, all the people that I worked with, and my future kids, and everyone else that I can only hope to do better for them because I've done better for myself.
Yeah, and even sharing your story is so powerful because a lot of people, since it is an invisible trauma, a lot of people haven't even given themselves the permission to acknowledge something happened to me. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mhm.
Especially when it comes from an unintentional place. Like, for example, if we have a parent who has cancer and is dying of cancer, and either A, they might pass away, or B, they survive it, but you might have struggled for years of not being able to go to school because you have to, you're the only child, you have to take care of your parent, or you actually have to
Yes.
help them with bathing or other things, and you
Yeah.
can't go out on the weekends, and there's things that can happen. Well, that's a form of you having to hush yourself down, push your needs and your what you want to do down so that you could attend to your parent. That's a
Yes.
form of abandonment that is not intentional. It's
Hmm.
not their fault. It's just the way it is. And
Yeah.
it's so good to have these conversations so people could give themselves permission to say, hey, I understand it wasn't intentional, but something did happen to me. And I'm not
Oh,
crazy right now when I panic, when I feel
yeah.
like I'm losing people. Or it's so
Yeah.
important for people to understand that you're not crazy. You're a
Yes.
human being who experienced things. And part of your experience means that you developed certain ways of coping, because an eating disorder and cutting is just a coping mechanism. It's
Absolutely.
it's harmful, but
Hmm.
at the same time, it's what helps you survive. A
For
lot of
sure.
times, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
Maybe if you didn't have the substance abuse at that time, you wouldn't have
Hmm.
survived. Maybe something else would have happened. And a lot of
Hmm.
coping mechanisms that people judge are, and even ourselves, that we judge ourselves for doing that. Well, that's a
Hmm.
part of us that was trying to
Yes.
help us survive. And we need to
Definitely.
say, hey, thank you for helping me survive. You know what? Right now, I don't need that anymore. And then you sort of
Yeah.
push it away, throw it away, and find a new way of coping. But that's why these conversations are so important and our stories are so important, so
Yes.
people could validate themselves and
Yes.
validate the experiences that we had, and then tell our parents, hey, it's okay. I know you were going through what you were going through as well. Of course, that I'm talking about parents that don't, but the majority of parents, I've caused harm to my kids too. I've done things too. I've been, abandonment. Like I worked for maybe 10 years, like 12, I don't know how many hours a day in Trinity, and my kids felt abandoned. So
Of course.
that is a generational cycle. Did I intend to do that? No. I am now very aware of it. And Brandon, so
Great.
Brandon will talk about that. But I'm very aware of it now. But
Yes.
that's how it becomes cyclical, even for someone like me who's a therapist. Because
Yes.
then you start justifying things. So it isn't that parents are not,
No.
not all parents intend to cause harm, but
Yes.
sometimes just life itself. And at the end of the
Yes.
day, we all have to carry our own little bag of struggles. Everyone here gets their own little bag. I don't
Yes.
know too many people that go through life without their little bag of struggles that teach us stuff. Those bags of
Absolutely.
struggles are the things that give us the lessons that we have, because then how else would you have been who you are today,
Yes. And I
right?
think what you said is so important. Like, that is exactly why we do these things, right? That's why we have these conversations, because I don't know anybody that hasn't struggled in some way. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a story. Everyone that I've connected with, friendship wise, family wise, I mean, business even, has a story, has a journey, has had struggles, and has to give themselves the permission to validate them, and to really like own it and accept the fact that this is valid, this is your experience, this is your truth. And even though you don't have to carry it anymore as a burden or as baggage, you can acknowledge it and say, like, this is what I went through, and this is, and it hurt, you know, and it was difficult and it was challenging and I didn't know how to cope with it. So I did all of these things that maybe weren't the best, but I had to do them. And love yourself anyway, right? Like being able to really validate what you've been through and love yourself through it and be compassionate towards yourself, because you're a human being. And I don't know any human being. I haven't met every single human being in the world. I would like to one day, but I know that everyone that I have met has had their own struggles and their own form of pain. And being able to talk about it, being able to openly talk about it, but also to sit with yourself and talk about it is so powerful. And I love that you also mentioned about how a lot of times like parents are not doing things intentionally. And for me personally, it's been such a powerful journey to be able to heal not only with myself and heal myself, but heal alongside my parents and be able to like let them know like this was my experience, but I know that it didn't come from a lack of love or you just not caring. I know it came from your own set of traumas, and then seeing them be able to heal is so powerful. Like that is what has given my journey so much more meaning and so much joy, because it's not just me healing from what I went through, it's them being able to say like, this is what I experienced and this is why I had to do what I did, and I'm sorry that I hurt you. Like that in itself is very powerful. And being able to have those conversations with yourself and with your parents, if you have the privilege to, like I have, is really, really powerful. And it's not always possible. And I'm very grateful that I've had that opportunity, but it's been so cool to see my parents heal as well through what we all went through in our own ways, and being able to acknowledge what we've all been through separately and together.
And that's such a beautiful thing, to be able to do that for ourselves, and then to be able to express that to our parents, to be able to forgive, to be able to express forgiveness and give them the gift of forgiveness before before they pass, before anything else, so that they could experience that healing as well, because their healing is our healing and our healing is their healing. So that's like so powerful. And I know you have like a great relationship with your mom, and you guys are really bonded, and isn't that like a beautiful experience to do that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. Because it wasn't, I mean, I've always loved her and I've always respected her and I've always found her so amazing and her personality so amazing. But it was really difficult for me when I was younger, because I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is not how you parent a woman. Like, I was very, very tough, very, I wasn't my age. So I didn't know how to be, I don't know if the word is submissive, but be like respectful. You know, I was like, no, you're doing this wrong. Get up, like do what you have to do, because I was just so frustrated, and it turned into a lot of friction and a lot of arguments.
You were so desperate to help her.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing. You know, like I didn't have the tools or the education. I didn't know what I was doing, but I cared so much, like any child would, right? And it's so powerful to even have conversations with her about it, to even witness, right? Like when I moved, I was really scared because I was like not able to be there all the time. Like, what are you doing? Are you okay? Is everything fine? It was like the first time that I was like, Ashley, we gotta do for ourselves, because we gotta provide for ourselves financially. Like we have to take care of ourselves in every aspect. So this is your priority. And it was so amazing to witness her own healing and to witness her growth. And now it's cool because when I was younger, there was like this disconnect, because I felt like older than I was, but she was like, I'm your mother, you know? And now it's like we're like best friends. And even with my dad, it's so cool to be able to have conversations with him, difficult conversations that are healing for him and hard for him and for myself, because you're opening wounds that are difficult, but still be able to respect one another and love one another, even if it's difficult to understand one another and difficult to talk about these things that are painful. It's been so amazing to be able to witness his growth as well, and his own healing and his own separate journey too.
Yeah, definitely. Their pain is our pain, their healing is our healing, and vice versa. It's just it's part of the bond. That bond that it's always going to be there. That bond will always be there. So that's incredible. So we're now at 8:30.
Oh my
We started a little late, but do you want to talk a little bit about like what, like your climb out of this, and like what you're doing now? You're looking up.
Yes, it's so exciting. It's really crazy for me. Like every time I talk about it or even see myself like from a different perspective, I'm really like I'm really in awe with myself. Like I'm very, very proud because I would have never even imagined doing what I do now. Like
Mhm.
I was so mortified of being in my skin that I couldn't have ever even dreamed about being paid for a photo shoot or being a model for fun. Like that was not something I could ever even imagine. So that in itself is super cool for me. Like now I model and it's like what I do as a career, like I actually do this consistently and I love it. Like I feel weird when I'm not doing photo shoots. I enjoy them so much. And I almost canceled my first one because I was so freaking scared. I was mortified. I was like, I can't do this. And I help people every day. Like I get to connect with such amazing people on a consistent basis. I've worked with thousands of people. Like I've connected with people that have gone through so many similar things, that have gone through many other different things, and just being able to be the vessel to help bring light to their lives, to be able to inspire them to love themselves unapologetically and to truly like give themselves permission to live confidently, not only in their skin but in their abilities and in who they are truly, um is something that I can't really express in words. I'm so beyond grateful, and it really is all about me doing that within my own journey, me giving myself permission to say yes to myself, like we always say, to step out of my comfort zone and do the things that terrified me, even if they terrified me, like doing them anyway, and making sure that I grew in love with myself more and more each day, because I went from absolutely not caring whether or not I lived to slowly but surely feeding myself and watering myself and nourishing myself and not chasing perfection, but just tending to myself in every aspect and doing for myself in the way that I wanted others to do for me. And when I started doing that, it transformed everything to where like the more that I just watered myself and gave to myself and loved on myself, the more my external environment and reality started shifting. And it was magic for me because I couldn't
Yeah, it
have.
really is.
It really
It's
is.
such a simple secret. It's such a simple
Yeah,
secret, but so hard to do, right?
it's
It's so
so
hard to
hard.
do when you never received it and you don't know how to. But once you do it, you're like, I could get used to
What?
this,
Yes.
right? You're
And
like,
yes, and what's crazy about it too is that I feel personally, just like I know you feel the same way. When you learn that and you see the fruition of that and you see that manifest in your life, right? All you want to do is share it with everybody. You're like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, because
yeah,
you have done
I
it,
know,
and only you know, right? Like I can talk about things that have happened in my life, but only really I know every single thing that has happened, every single emotion, every single defeating thought, like that I experience on a consistent basis over and over and over again, right? Only I can know like really where I come from. So many people live there and they really can't see anything more. They really can't imagine anything more. And
hmm
I was there. Like I was the person that was like, yeah, right. Like the bare minimum is what I could have dreamed for myself because I couldn't believe in
right?
anything greater. And the more I
Yeah,
just
that's
cared
amazing.
for myself, the more you see that present itself in life, things that you could have never imagined. And I can't stress enough to everyone watching
I
that
know,
they are capable of the same exact thing. They are. If I can do it, if you can do it, I mean,
exactly.
your story is amazing as well. Like if we can do it, we could be here. If we could cross paths with each other, like the universe orchestrated, and we can do all of the things that we're doing, like you can absolutely do it too.
And if you could have a life with a crooked thing in the back, you know what? Then it's all good. It's all good. I just saw it. Hey guys, like, look, you don't have to show up perfect. Just show up, right? Just show up.
Yes.
do what you got to
Yes.
do, and that's it. But I love like that ending, everything you just finished saying, because we're here, and the whole purpose of Thrive Talk, and even the whole purpose of Circle of Champions Worldwide is exactly this: being a champion for yourself, and then giving that news to others, and even transcend, transform, and transmit. This is what we're talking
Yes.
about. You transcend, you have a transformation, and then you transmit to the world. And we're like
Yes.
we're doing the same thing, and we're just coloring it a different shade, but it's the same thing. That's why we always have so much fun together. And really, like, both of us, our purpose is to say, hey guys, we made it, and
Yes.
you don't even know. I don't even know how we made it. That's what we're always like. I don't even know how I got here, but we got here. We
Exactly.
made it, and the same
Yes.
we did it. So can you. So can you, because we have very similar stories, and in different ways. We have very similar stories. We had like very similar impacts to our
Yes.
lives. Like, those things have the same similar impacts, um and we're here to say, look, we're not at the top of the mountain, because you know what? There really is no top of the mountain, because the
Yes.
mountain is
No.
so high. We would have to live, I don't know how many lives, to get to the top of the
Yes.
top of the top of the mountain. But we are
Exactly.
growing. We are growing, and
Yes.
that's really what we're aiming for. For the
Mhm.
journey, and then to see progress. If your progress
Yes.
is 1 inch today, and for your neighbor it's 1 mile, okay, good for them. But your 1 inch is magnificent, right? Your 1 inch is like
Yes.
big, big time. So, and
Mhm.
sometimes today could be 1 inch, and tomorrow could be, you know, like a mile. It just
Yeah.
depends. And you're not like anybody else. You don't have to compare yourself to anybody else. You just have to
Definitely.
compare yourself to you. Are you better than what you were? If the answer is yes, are you better than what you were a week ago? Then that's
Yes.
awesome.
Mhm.
If you're better than what you were a year ago, are you continuously getting better on your healing and self-development journey? Then that's all I want to see. That's all I want to see. If you have a bad day, but you're still doing what you got to do, or you have a bad day and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to, like, I need self-care today, and I'm going to just show up tomorrow. That's also
Absolutely.
okay, because you know
Yeah.
what? Ashley does it all the time. She'll
All the
block you and ignore
time.
you.
You know it. You know it. With love, with
Oh,
lots of
you
love.
block people and ignore them for a week. It's like,
A month if
but
I
you
have
but
to. Honestly, yes.
but now you know what you need. Now you know what you
Exactly.
need, and that's good to know, to be. That's called setting boundaries. And for people like us, it's so hard, because then we feel guilty that we're not
Oh my
doing,
God.
and we're
Yes.
not helping someone else, and we're so used to forgetting ourselves. We're so used to saying,
Yes.
you know what, I because we could handle everything, right?
Yeah.
But just
Oh, of
because
course.
we could handle everything doesn't mean we should handle everything. There's a big
Exactly.
difference. Just because you
Yes.
could handle it, like, everybody can handle anything. I mean, as human beings, we're
Yeah.
amazing. We could handle like so much crap. But does that mean we should? Does that mean we should tolerate things because we can? No.
Exactly.
But we
No.
weren't. If you were never taught that, you think you should be able to handle it, or else you're not
Yeah.
good, you're bad, or you're worthless, or you're not a good person, or you're selfish. You're selfish.
Yeah.
That's the
Especially
other
when
one.
you're expected to, right? Like a lot of times we are expected to put our needs and everything in the back burner for the needs of those that need us. And we get so used to doing that. And for me, just like you and many other people, that's what your life becomes, to where like everything you do is revolving around other people. And I love that I've been able to do that. I love doing that. I do that for clients. I do that for these lives, right? Like I love helping other people. But you have to be able, a huge aspect of self-love is being able to say, I need though too. And I'm one of these people that needs to be tended to. And I'm one of these people that deserves that love
Right.
that I am giving to everybody all the time. And being able to honor yourself and do that for yourself is essential. And at the same time, incredibly difficult for people that never did it because of what they were expected to do and because of what they had to do and what they got used to doing, which was here you go, here you go, here you go. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And being able to still function, right? And function highly doing that and not tending to yourself
Yeah.
is
And that's
it's
that's a struggle for me. It still is. I try to practice it. It's still a struggle for me. You know what my struggles are, because you're like my therapist at times. But it is a struggle. It is, and
yes.
sometimes I talk to guys. I'm gonna tell you a little secret. Sometimes I talk to Ashley, and she makes so much sense that I'm like, what do you
Oh
mean?
my
And
god.
she's like, know you're smart and you get this, but for some reason you're unable to see it for yourself.
Oh my gosh, I
You know,
love
when
it.
it's you, you can be a helper to,
Yes,
and you can be so logical for everybody
yes.
else, but when it comes to you, there's like a big blinder. You're
Huh?
not seeing, you don't see reality, and sometimes we need someone to point
Yes.
it out. And I'm gonna tell you
Sure.
guys, Ashley points it out. Ashley points it out. I'm like, what? What? I'm like,
Oh my
I'm like, that
gosh.
makes so much sense. I get so excited.
We all need
Wait, what
that.
did
We all need
Ryan says, did she not talk to everyone for a month if that's needed, or
that. Oh my
specific
gosh.
people?
So that's a good question. Obviously, I was being a little dramatic, but I feel like it's important to discern that within yourself, right? Like there are people that you know based on how you feel when you communicate with them and based on where you're at energetically, emotionally. This is what I do for me, right? If I'm working with a whole bunch of clients, which is what I used to do, was like unrealistic, unreasonable, but I did it regardless of how I felt, regardless of how exhausted I was, regardless of how fatigued I was, because like you said earlier, this was how I lived. I was used to living this way and I could do it. So since I could do it, then why not continue doing it? But you will crash and burn this way. So you have to be really honest with yourself of like, can I take this call right now? Right? Like do I have the energy to take this call or to talk to these people or to talk to this person? Do I want to? Right? Like I never did that with myself. It was like, whether you want to or not, you're going to answer the phone because they need you. I never ever rejected a phone call, a message. It was me showing up for whoever needed it whenever they needed it. And me didn't exist. So now it's really important for me to be honest with myself and say, like, do you want to do this? Do you want to talk to this person? Do you have the energy to talk to this person or these people or do this live? Like when I do that, I can do so much more, to be honest, because I'm discerning that and saying, no, right now I actually don't want to. And honoring that and not explaining or justifying that. Just, no, I don't want to because I don't feel like it. And that's okay. Right?
Yeah,
Because
it's okay to say that.
yeah, it's totally okay and important and healthy to do that. And it's difficult though, right? You're gonna feel guilt. I did and still do sometimes. To where it's like, man, should you just answer? Like, what if they need you? Or like, aren't you being selfish by not answering? And it's like, this is not. I can do this sometimes, right? I can say no when I need it or even just when I want to. And it doesn't mean you're saying no and ignoring people 24/7 all the time. I talk to you, I talk to those that I care about, but I talk to a lot of people, and it would be impossible for me to communicate with all of these people all the time, plus my clients, plus do lives, plus do videos. I wouldn't have any energy, like vital energy, to be able to come on here and feel as joyful as I do. Like I wouldn't have that. And being that honest with myself allows me to have those connections with boundaries and have them flourish and not feel like I'm neglecting people or not feel like they're going to stop loving me if I don't show up for them 24/7.
Yes, that's excellent. I hope you got well, Ryan, I hope that answered your question. Laura says the people that hurt you and abandon you expect you to attend, yet they call you selfish and try to shame you when you are taking care of yourself. Exactly. Exactly. And those are people that are very toxic because
Yeah.
someone who isn't toxic would never express that. Someone that's
Yes.
not toxic wouldn't feel that way. So just understand that someone who is feeling that way is dealing with their own issues, and it's not even really personal. It's really just a projection of themselves and how critical they are of themselves and what they're carrying. And if you know that, once you know that, it doesn't really stop so much like the hurt because you're still gonna feel a little hurt, especially if it's like your significant other, or if it's a close friend or your parents or someone you really care about. It's gonna sting, but it makes a big difference to know that it's not even about you. Because
Yes.
someone that's mature and emotionally healthy will not do
Hmm.
that. They will not do
Yeah.
that. Someone that has a good relationship with themselves would not do that.
Hmm.
Because what we do just reflects our relationship with ourselves. It's really
Yeah.
never about us. It's really
No.
their relationship with themselves. And, and God knows, like, Ashley knows that I do take things personal. And things sting, and so things do hurt. So I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
not going to hurt, but then after the pain, after like the first, hour of, oh my God, I can't believe it happened. I can't believe it, and all that talk that you do. Then you can go, you know what? I know it's not even about me. I know it's about them and their issues, right? And Ashley has heard me rant like that, by the way. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And I start doing all this. I'm so angry and I can't believe it.
But it's important to do that. I love that you do that with me, and I love that you shared that here, because a lot of people don't honor those emotions. They don't honor those thoughts, but you have to, because they're real. Like, I can't believe this person has not answered me, or has totally rejected me, or has abandoned me, and now you can feel whatever you need to feel. You can rant, but then you get yourself back to knowing that it's not personal. Don't take it personal, right? Because it is never a jab at you. It's really a projection. Knowing that allows you to step into your power, gain your power back, because you're not attaching your worth to everybody's behaviors and everybody's actions. When you detach from that, you're able to say, my gosh, this hurt, this stung, this isn't fair, but it's not about me, right? It's just what they're projecting. I can understand it because I can put myself in their shoes, or I can understand where they're coming from, which allows you to express empathy, but at the same time say, like, okay, my worth is not attached to this. So even though it hurts, it's not going to change how I am doing energetically, emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Perfectly said by Mimi. Process and proceed.
Yes,
exactly.
Proceed. Yes.
That is perfect. That's awesome. That's like straight to the point. Process and proceed.
Exactly. I'm going to use that.
For you guys out there, Ashley's a great person to process things with. She'll be like, yes, yes, yes. She'll never make you feel bad about going, and I can't believe it. That's what I look like. That's what I look like. That's what I look like. I can't believe it. Oh my
God. I love that. Oh my goodness.
You're not even going, no, you're not like that. You're like, yeah, she is. Oh my God. No.
But it's healthy. It's because it's healthy. Honestly, like, sometimes I have to pull that out of people, and even myself. Like, don't filter what you feel. Tell me what you feel, Ashley, right? And even with my clients, like, tell me what you feel. Don't like, oh, I feel this way, but actually, like, no. Tell me how you feel. Do you feel hurt? Do you feel disrespected? You feel like, rant to me, because you have the freedom of doing that. Rant, you can journal it. That I do that all the time, where I'm like, this is so frustrating. I feel like this, and this is the truth of how I feel in this moment. And then once you've released it without filtering it, then you can say, okay, but it's not about me. It's not tied to my worth. It's okay. You process it, and you feel and release it, and then you proceed, just like Mimi said.
And you know what? And this is the last thing, because we could sit here and talk forever. We're just bouncing off. We will bounce off each other for hours. But the last thing I want to say related to what you just said is, it's actually very good before you do the proceed part to process. If you don't have a person, that journaling thing is so important. Just let it all out and don't unleash it on the person. It takes so much discipline to not like just impulsively go and attack the person. And I just saw how big my head is when I go like this.
It felt like your hand was gonna come through the screen.
Let's high five. High five. How funny. But it's so important to process a little bit. If you're gonna unleash the dragon on someone, just try to be responsible enough to go, you know what? I'll get back to you. Let me go to the bathroom really quick, because you might say stuff that it's going to come out wrong, or it's going to come from a place of rage or anger or whatever, so much emotion, pain, resent, whatever it is. And sometimes it's better to simmer that piece down before you have the conversation, because you could definitely not have a conversation if your emotions are like and it's a physiological thing. If your pulse is going like 100 and something miles an hour because you're like super pissed, and your face is red, and your heartbeat is going, and like all this is happening, and you're feeling flushed and everything, those are all physical signs letting you know, hey, you need to take relax. And if you see the other person doing that, and you're not like that, let's say you're not like that and the other person like that, then you go, you know what, maybe we could take a little break, and let's get back in 20 minutes. It is important to come back though, because sometimes you do that. Sometimes you're like, hey, let's take a break and check out, and then no one comes back. Yeah, then no one comes back. And then another terrible habit is coming back, not even like coming back and pretending nothing happened. is not
Mhm.
okay either. That's just as bad as exploding. Actually,
Yeah.
exploding on each other might be even better than doing that. So
Yeah.
the best thing is to, have an agreement and say, hey, you know what? I can't talk to you right now. I'm really upset right now. So
Yes.
let's talk in 30 minutes or
Yeah.
tomorrow. But no more than 24 hours. 24 hours is
For
very
sure.
long to come back. Like,
Yes.
I'm a Gottman, not a Gottman therapist. I've done level 3 Gottman, up to level 3 Gottman therapy. I mean, training, and they say 20 minutes. They say you should take
Wow.
20 minutes.
Awesome.
But they say
Yeah.
when you walk away, it's also, if you're hot blooded, it's not about walking away and going, oh my God, I can't stand that person, and like talking about it in your head. It's about
Yes.
walking away to
Yeah.
self-soothe, calm
Yes.
down, and then come
Yes.
back. Because if you walked away and made yourself more angry and came back with more ammunition,
Oh my
you
God,
just got
forget it.
more ammunition, and they're like, and I remember all these
Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready for you. It's crazy
Yeah.
because everything that you describe, I resonate so much with, because that whole rush that you feel when you're angry, if you, I know personally from my own experience and from my own reactiveness, that if I feed that, it's over. Like, it's over. I'm gonna say things that just add to the chaos, and it doesn't allow for any growth. It doesn't allow for any true communication. And I'm pointing fingers and blaming the other person, when really it's like I fed that reactiveness that led to an even more chaotic situation. And it's so important. It has been so important now that I've practiced a lot more, because I have become aware of that rush of emotion and everything that happens when you're just really frustrated and angry, to pause and say, like, right now, this can't happen because we're not thinking clearly. Because right now, what I really want to do, you don't even want to know what I really want to say.
We can't say
Exactly. So let me walk away before I add to this something that's going to make this very, very unhealthy and very, like, not productive at all, and walking away. But then, like you said, coming back to it and not avoiding it by saying I'm walking away and never talking, or ignoring the person, and then coming back and acting like it never happened. Like, it's really important to communicate. It's really important to have those connections and conversations, but in a space where it's safe, and in a space where you feel like you can actually communicate what you feel, instead of reacting based on how you feel.
Mhm. That's a perfect word, reacting, because that's what we do.
Yes, definitely. Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, it was awesome to have you. And I like some people haven't met you, like Mimi. I know had never met you before. Laura hasn't met you before. You're new to some people. That's why I wanted you to come back. Because we've been friends for so long, like a whole entire year.
That's long, okay?
It's long.
We've done
Actually,
so
more
much.
than a year. I think we
Yeah,
met last year, like in May. Was it May?
yeah. Right when
Like
I
right
moved
when you
back.
came from California.
Yeah.
Doesn't
It's
it feel
been,
like it's been here longer?
yes, so much longer.
Right?
And we've done so many things too, and have gone through so many things, that it really feels like we've connected in such a deeper way, which I think is so cool.
Yeah.
It feels
That's
like a
so cool.
lifetime. Yeah.
I can't wait for like this whole thing to end so that we could have an actual meetup, another meetup, like another Circle of Champions meetup. It's so much fun.
I know.
Um,
I'm so
so-
excited.
all right, so it was so awesome to have you. Let's tell everyone, on Instagram, it's Peña Pequeña. So let's write that there so people can see it. It's not Ashley. I'm gonna type it
No.
up here so people can see it. She is Peña Pequeña. Pequeña. I can't do the ñ, but this is it.
Okay.
And on YouTube, you guys have to subscribe to her YouTube channel, to Ashley's YouTube channel, because it's really, really awesome. And she's always putting out really, really awesome things about like self-love, meditation, mindfulness, like all these things related to what we're talking about today, which is actually like all about healing, self-love, and all of this. So you should follow her on YouTube, follow her on Instagram and Twitter. She's always tweeting all kinds of things. I think, you know what? There's a different side of you on Twitter.
Oh, for
It's like
sure. I love that. I love that though, because so many
different.
people, I know, so many people don't get to see that side. And I feel like Twitter's just, I don't know what it is about the Twitter energy, but it allows me to tap into those aspects of me that I usually don't tap into. So if you want interesting,
what would we call that aspect? Because I have a word for it, but I don't know if I want to say it.
I don't know. Like, I want to call it, like, I don't know if it's shadow self or I don't know. It's like a different, I don't know. You could call it whatever. But I think it's important too for people to know that we're multidimensional beings, right? Like, we have so much to us. And sometimes, a lot of times, because of society and what we're taught is like acceptable or not, we're only going to show certain sides of ourselves. And I'm a huge advocate of like, no, show and express yourself unapologetically, and as long as it's not hurting somebody and really like hurting yourself, then express yourself in all dimensions of who you are. So definitely Twitter is like that, like feisty different side.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that in lieu of another word. In lieu of another word, I was gonna say spicy. So you guys will see.
I love that.
You guys will see. You know, spicy could mean many different things. So on Twitter, you're gonna see a spicy side of Ashley, and then on YouTube, you'll see another spicy side of Ashley. There's like different spiciness of Ashley. And spicy, sure. I mean, spicy. And Ashley is very spicy. I was going to say spicy is very Ashley, but Ashley is very, very spicy. So you guys should follow her on all those platforms. You really want to follow her. You really want to learn from her. And she's just like a wealth of knowledge, even though she's super, super young. I love Ashley. And Ashley brings, you know how Ashley's talking about different sides of you? Ashley always brings out a very silly side of me and the angry side of me, because you allow me to be angry. So, so like, you know what? She's like, so like she encourages my anger.
Yeah, because it's healthy. It's such a healthy emotion. It's so important.
Oh, Ryan says I may be on the wrong Twitter profile. Nothing spicy on there. So what's your
Pena
Twitter?
Pequeña.
Okay, so Pena Pequeña is also on Twitter, and on Twitter, her spicy side is more like an opinionated. Yeah. I don't want to say angry, but I do want to say angry.
Yeah. I definitely express more frustration. I feel like Twitter is where I'm like, if I feel something, I go on there and I'm not gonna really filter it that much. Like, I'm gonna be cautious with what I say, but if I'm like, I feel inspired to talk about something that I don't agree with, or something that I'm like, what are you guys doing? I'm going to say, what are you guys doing? I'm not going to say like, oh, we should be like love and light. That's like no, this is unacceptable. We need to do better. This is not happening. Like, I definitely feel that.
And are you coming back to Facebook or what? Because you know you've been like MIA.
Yeah, I have been. Well, a huge part of that too is obviously like there's so many freaking platforms, which I'm so grateful for. But I want to make sure that I'm coming on Facebook with a lot more intention, because I have fun with all the other social media platforms, but Facebook is very much like, it's more serious. And so I have so many fun things that I'm creating, so many helpful and transformative things. I'm actually doing a Stepping into Self-Love course, which I'm super excited about. It's not completely done yet, but it's close to it. Awesome. So I will be sharing more information about that soon. And I will be doing more lives revolving around that too. And hopefully we can do more lives together too, because I feel like we talk about self-love all the time together.
Totally. I love it. All right, guys. Good night to everyone. I actually have, like, right now need to be on another call, but good night to everyone. Thank you, Ashley, so much for being. And yes, we will definitely do more lives. I'm gonna invite you to a live that I'm doing with Brandon, Cookie, and some 2 other people like your age, and you'll be the oldest.
Yes, that's awesome.
It's gonna be really good.
Wow, that's so exciting. That's never happened before. Awesome.
All right, guys. Good night. Thanks for joining me.
Good night, everyone.
I hope you learned a lot. And see you next week. Bye.
Bye.